पाकिस्तान के खिलाफ बहुत सारे महाज खुले, कुछ हमने खुद खोले और काफी सारे हमारे खिलाफ खोले गए। आज के महाज
I think storytelling can be so important.
They should have been a writer, a journalist, a poet, but log kya bolenge? No one gives a shit that you went to Yale or UPenn or Brown. If you don't tell your story will be told to you by others.
Why do we do this? It's our dignity. Dignity is what I live with 24/7.
And I am stuck to defend the principles.
बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम, अस्सलाम वालेकुम। मैं हूं वजाहत सईद खान। मंजन बेचना इंसानी फितरत है। अपनी गर्लफ्रेंड को आप मंजन बेचते हैं कि आपसे शादी कर ले, अपने बॉस को आप मंजन बेचते हैं कि आपको प्रमोशन दे दे, अपने टीचर को आप मंजन बेचते हैं कि आपको ए ग्रेड दे दे। ये हमारा भी काम है, हम भी आपको रोज मंजन बेचते हैं। ये हो गया, वो हो गया। फॉर एग्जाम्पल आज का मंजन जो है सैड है, बट मंजन मंजन होता है। वेरी सैड बट वेरी ट्रू। TLP ने कराची में, सदर में, जिधर मेरा स्कूल था, उसके करीब ही लिंच किया है, कत्ल किया है एक अहमदी को। ये इस वक्त कराची में हेडलाइन न्यूज है, शायद बाकी मुल्क में नहीं होगी, मगर पर कराची में दिस इज अ टेरिबल इंसिडेंट। एक और मंजन जो इस वक्त पाकिस्तान के डेप्यूटी प्राइम मिनिस्टर, आई डोंट नो व्हाट दैट ऑफिस इवन मींस, पाकिस्तान के फॉरेन मिनिस्टर इसहाक डार जाके उधर पठानों को, अफगानियों को, तालिबानों को मंजन बेच रहे हैं। पता नहीं क्या मंजन बेच रहे हैं। ऑब्वियसली वो उनसे कंट्रोल नहीं होते, तो वो और फिर उन्हें जो मंजन वापस बेचा जाएगा वो दूसरी खबर है। मगर ये रोज के मंजन छोड़ें, बड़े मंजनों पे आज हम कंसंट्रेट करते हैं। बड़ा मंजन जो है दो लोग इस वक्त बेच रहे हैं। एक मंजन तो आसिम मुनीर बेच रहा है और एक मंजन अली अमीन गंडापुर बेच रहा है। आसिम मुनीर जो है वो एक लंबी कतार के जनरलों का लेटेस्ट जो वर्जन है, जिन्होंने अलग अलग मंजन बेचे हैं। आसिम मुनीर उन्हीं मंजन साजों का एक और सक्सेसर है। 80s में ज़िया ने जिहाद का मंजन अमरीकियों को बेचा। 2000s में मुशर्रफ ने वॉर अगेंस्ट टेरर का मंजन फिर से अमरीकियों को बेचा। 2014-15 में राहिल शरीफ एंड कंपनी, उससे पहले क्यानी एंड कंपनी ने सीपेक का मंजन चाइनीज को बेचा। पिछले दिनों में बाजवा ने जो कॉर्पोरेट फार्मिंग वगैरह है उसका मंजन बेचते बेचते हैंड ओवर किया आसिम मुनीर को अरबियों की तरफ, और अब मिनरल्स का मंजन जो है वो बेचा जा रहा है। मिनरल्स इस वक्त पाकिस्तान के जो दो मगरबी सूबे हैं उनमें ज्यादातर बेस्ड हैं। मिनरल्स इफेक्टिवली पाकिस्तान का फ्यूचर है बकौल इस मंजन साज की। और ये जो मंजन साज है जिसका नाम जनरल आसिम मुनीर है, इसने कल ओवरसीज पाकिस्तानियों को भी मंजन बेचा, जिसका हमने एक उम्मीद करता हूं मेरी तरफ से, तो मुझे बड़ा दिलचस्प लगा उसको ब्रेक डाउन करना। आप में से हजारों लोगों ने हजारों कमेंट्स जो लिखे उसमें आई रियली अप्रिशिएट आपने क्या किया, मगर वो मंजन ही था। मगर अली अमीन गंडापुर किसे मंजन बेच रहा है? फौजियों का तो काम है कि अमरीकियों को, चाइनीज को, अलग अलग लोगों को बेचो, मगर who is Ali Amin Gandapur selling to? Who can buy his manjan? Who is listening to him? Who is the only person he can meet? That's right. Let's think about that. इमरान खान। इमरान खान की एक वीकनेस है, इमरान खान की एक सॉफ्ट अंडरबेली है, और उसका नाम अकाउंटेबिलिटी है, उसका नाम एहतसाब है। जब आप अकाउंटेबिलिटी, ट्रांसपेरेंसी, एहतसाब का नाम लेते हैं, ये जो लफ्ज ये आप जब बोलते हैं, तो इमरान खान के कान खड़े हो जाते हैं, इमरान खान की दिल की धड़कन तेज हो जाती है जब आप कहते हैं कि खान साहब उसको अकाउंटेबल रखना है, उसके साथ शफाफियत करनी है, उधर ट्रांसपेरेंसी करनी है। खान साहब लव्स एंटी करप्शन। खान साहब ने दबा के खुद एक एंटी करप्शन जार के जरिए दीगर लोगों के साथ काम किया था और करवाया भी था। शहजाद अकबर साहब की मैं बात कर रहा हूं जो एक्चुअली एंटी करप्शन जार थे। तो खान साहब लव्स एंटी करप्शन, और खान साहब को जो भी एंटी करप्शन का मंजन बेचता है, एहतसाब का मंजन बेचता है, वो खान साहब की गुड बुक्स में आ जाता है। इस वक्त बात चल रही है और पीटीआई की अंदरूनी सीनियर सोर्सेज बता रही हैं कि अली अमीन गंडापुर के दिन खत्म हो गए हैं। खान साहब को वाकई ही बड़े अरसे बाद ख्याल आया कि अली अमीन गंडापुर ने एक बार नहीं, दो बार नहीं, बल्कि पिछले साल 1.5 साल से दीगर बार ऐसी हरकतें की हैं जो डाउट्स क्रिएट करती हैं उनके बारे में। ये सिर्फ वाहिद चैनल नहीं है जिसने अली अमीन गंडापुर के डिसइंजेन्युअस बिहेवियर के अनएथिकल मूव्स के बारे में सवाल उठाए हैं। वो खुद जो है ऐसी बातें करते रहे हैं कि मैं फलानी बस में बैठ गया, फलाने पहाड़ पे चला गया, फलाने जहाज से मैंने छलांग मारी और इसलिए मैं वापस हामता कामता अपने जो एहतजाज वाले भाई थे उनको छोड़ के हामता कामता वापस पेशावर आ गया। इन्होंने लॉन्ग मार्च में भी किया जो पिछली गर्मियों में हुआ, और पिछली सर्दियों में नवंबर में जो 26 नवंबर को हुआ वो भी आपके सामने है। Ali Amin Gandapur is a questionable character. Maybe that is why he's the only person allowed to meet Imran Khan. And from the word on the street is that जो भी Ali Amin Gandapur के लिए challenge है, जो actually वाकई ही शफाफ है, जो actually वाकई ही खुददार है, जैसे तैमूर खान झगड़ा, जैसे आतिफ खान, उन लोगों को अली अमीन गंडापुर टारगेट कर रहा है। आजकल बात चल रही थी पीटीआई के सर्कल्स में कि बाबर सलीम सवाती जो हैं वो चीफ मिनिस्टर अगले, उनका नाम रखा गया है। खान साहब ने ऑलरेडी जुनैद अकबर को पार्टी चीफ बना दिया था केपी का। तो ऑलरेडी रिस्ट्रक्चरिंग की जब बात हो रही थी, अली अमीन गंडापुर के सामने जो भी राइवल आता है उसके खिलाफ केस खुल जाते हैं। आतिफ खान के ऊपर केस खुल गए जब उनकी बात हुई है सीएम की। तैमूर खान झगड़ा की जब कैबिनेट में आने की बात हुई उनके खिलाफ केस खुल गए, और फिर ऑफ कोर्स अब बाबर सलीम सवाती साहब के खिलाफ केस खुल जाते हैं। ये केस कौन खोलता है? एक शख्स है ब्रिगेडियर मुसद्दिक। मुसद्दिक कम है, ब्रिगेडियर वो ज्यादा है। इसलिए नामुसद्दिक या गैर मुसद्दिक ब्रिगेडियर जो है उसको मैं कहूंगा वो इस वक्त अली अमीन गंडापुर का राइट आर्म है। जिसे भी टारगेट करना हो केपी हुकूमत में, मुसद्दिक उसके खिलाफ ब्रिगेड ले आता है एहतसाब की, और फिर वही ब्रिगेड जो है जाके वो केस रखती है सामने खान साहब के कि खान साहब ये बड़े गलत लोग हैं जो इस वक्त केपी में घुसे हुए हैं। केपी पे क्यों इस वक्त ब्रिगेड और ब्रिगेडियर का हमला जारी है और एहतसाब को क्यों बना के, मंजन बना के खान के सामने बेचा जा रहा है? बात बड़ी सिंपल है। केपी इस वक्त जो बलूचिस्तान के साथ साथ ऐसा इंपॉर्टेंट एलिमेंट है फौज के मंजन की स्ट्रैटेजी का कि केपी की हुकूमत के बगैर, केपी की जमीनों के बगैर, केपी के मिनरल्स के बगैर, केपी की मदनियात के बगैर आगे बात नहीं चलेगी। ज्यादा बड़ा निशाना ऑब्वियसली बलूचिस्तान है, ज्यादातर जो काने हैं, जो माइंस हैं वो उधर हैं, मगर ये जो नया मंजन है सीपैक के बाद एग्रीकल्चर, एग्रीकल्चर के बाद ये, इसमें केपी का इनके साथ होना जरूरी है। उसके लिए केपी हुकूमत ने निकाहनामा जो मिनरल्स बिल है उस पर दस्तखत करने हैं। ये निकाहनामा, ये जो दस्तखत है, ये इसके लिए जो मौलवी साहब हैं वो उनको बनाया गया है क्या नाम है, गंडापुर को। एंड गंडापुर जाके बार बार कहता है कि कबूल है, कबूल है, कबूल है। अब इसमें जो दुल्हा है वो कैदी नंबर 804 बैठा हुआ है। He has to ultimately pass this, but that is the great debate right now. There are people within the PTI, केपी के पीटीआई में इस वक्त लोग हैं, पढ़े लिखे लोग हैं, मुसद्दिक लोग हैं, एक्चुअली मुसद्दिक लोग हैं, नाम के मुसद्दिक नहीं, काम के मुसद्दिक, जो कह रहे हैं इस बिल में जो है SIFC फौज के फिंगरप्रिंट्स हैं, ये कहीं से लोकल्स को एम्पावर नहीं करेगा। तो आप कह सकते हैं कि तनकीद शुरू हो गई है इस बिल के। इस बिल में अगर आप पढ़ें और हम इस पर डिटेल नोट्स करेंगे आगे आने वाले किस्तों में, जो नजर आने लग गया है वो बिग पिक्चर आपके लिए ये है कि इमरान खान को हटाना सिर्फ एक कड़ी थी एक लार्जर मिलिट्री कॉर्पोरेट टेक ओवर की, जो इस वक्त तसलसल में है। जो लार्जर मिलिट्री कॉर्पोरेट टेक ओवर है, जो एक ओलिगार्कल किस्म का टेक ओवर है, जिसमें पाकिस्तान की मिलिट्री इंडस्ट्रियल एलिट, पाकिस्तान की वो अशराफिया जो या फौज में है या कंपनीज चलाती है और जिन के दोस्त यार वाशिंगटन में बैठे हैं, चीन में बैठे हैं, रियाज में बैठे हैं, अबू धाबी में बैठे हैं, ये इफेक्टिवली पाकिस्तान का आप कह सकते हैं एक कॉर्पोरेट मिलिट्री टेक ओवर है। इसे कॉर्पोरेट जुबान में रेड कहते हैं, मर्जर और एक्विजिशन कहते हैं। इन्वेस्टमेंट बैंकर्स बड़े मशहूर हैं न्यूयॉर्क के इन कामों में, और इनका भी यही मौकिफ है। इधर वॉल स्ट्रीट में अगर बात हो तो पाकिस्तान को इस वक्त एक अंडर रेड किस्म का मुल्क, किस्म की इकॉनमी देखा जा रहा है, और ये पाकिस्तान को रेड करवा रहे हैं बाहर के लोगों को बुला के। इस सब में अगर इमरान खान आज बाहर होता तो शायद ये नहीं होता जो हो रहा है। इमरान कभी भी इस किस्म के मिनरल एक्ट, ये जो मिनरल बिल जो टेबल हुआ है, जो लोकल्स को डिसएम्पावर करता है, ज्यादातर पैसा हुकूमत, फेडरल हुकूमत और फौज की जेब में और बाहर वाले लोगों की, इन्वेस्टर्स की जेब में डालता है, ये नहीं होता। अब इसमें जो डिटेल्स हैं वो हम आपके सामने लाएंगे। दीगर एक्सपर्ट्स इस पे बोलने लग गए हैं, लिखने लग गए हैं। माशाल्लाह से पाकिस्तान में थोड़ा बहुत जो मेन स्ट्रीम प्रेस बच गया है, उसमें ये बातें शाया हो रही हैं। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, एक जबरदस्त आर्टिकल है जो मैं लगाता हूँ, रफीउल्लाह काकड़, कोयटा के ये इकोनॉमिस्ट हैं, इन्होंने माइनिंग बिल एंड इकोनॉमी पे बात की है। बलूचिस्तान भी एक बहुत बड़ा निशाना है सब में, बट केपी जो है इस वक्त बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट कड़ी है। केपी को टेक ओवर करना है फौज ने, और इसलिए गंडापुर को लगाया गया है। ये मोटा मोटा आज की बिग पिक्चर है मंजन की। अभी आपने जो शुरू में क्लिप देखा था वो क्या था? वो एक्चुअली मेरा रीसेंट प्रोजेक्ट येल यूनिवर्सिटी में जो पिछले वीकेंड हुआ, उसका एक रील थी। येल यूनिवर्सिटी दुनिया की कदीम तरीन यूनिवर्सिटीज में से है, 325 साल पुरानी है, अमेरिका से ज्यादा पुरानी है। अमेरिका मेरा ख्याल है 1775-76 में आजाद हुआ, येल यूनिवर्सिटी 1701 में बनी, तो अमेरिका से भी तकरीबन 150 साल ज्यादा पुरानी, ज्यादा कदीम यूनिवर्सिटी है। हार्वर्ड की टक्कर की यूनिवर्सिटी है। उधर पाकिस्तानी अमेरिकन जो स्टूडेंट्स हैं, जो डायस्पोरा है, वो इकट्ठे हुए पिछले वीकेंड। 300-325 से जायद लोग आए, सोल्ड आउट हाउस, टिकट खत्म हो गए। 40-45 पैनलिस्ट आए। 2 पैनल्स मैंने होस्ट किए, एक मैंने पिछला पैनल लगाया था जो टाउन हॉल किया था एम्बेसडर एंड पैटरसन, एम्बेसडर अली सिद्दीकी और माइकल कुगलमैन के साथ। ये जो अगला पैनल है, ये फ्रैंकली ज्यादा मजेदार है। ये सवाल उठाता है कि क्या पाकिस्तानियों को अब उधर और इधर मीडिया में आना चाहिए, जर्नलिज्म बनना चाहिए, स्टोरी टेलिंग करनी चाहिए या नहीं। हमारे जो पैनल है, हमारी जो डिबेट है, सबसे पुरानी जो बिल्डिंग है येल की, तकरीबन 250 साल पुरानी बिल्डिंग है, व्हाइट हॉल, उधर हुई। मेरे हमनाम वजाहत अली जो बड़े मशहूर पाकिस्तानी अमेरिकन जर्नलिस्ट हैं, वो थे, और मेरे दोस्त जिब्रान इलियास जो पीटीआई के सोशल मीडिया बॉस हैं, वो खसूसी तौर पे शिकागो से आए। इवन तो जर्नलिस्ट नहीं है, मीडिया जो है उनके काम का हिस्सा है, और अब सोशल मीडिया के बगैर जर्नलिज्म बेकार है, तो इसलिए हमने इतने इंपॉर्टेंट सोशल मीडिया इन्फ्लुएंसर को बुलाया। साथ साथ मेरी पुरानी कॉलीग आयशा तंजीम, जिनके साथ मैंने अफगानिस्तान में, पाकिस्तान में, वजीरिस्तान में रिपोर्टिंग की हुई है, वॉइस ऑफ अमेरिका में होती थी वो, और ऑफ कोर्स येल की एक जबरदस्त अलमनाए महर नदीम, जो नौजवान है मगर एक जबरदस्त रिपोर्टर हैं, जिन्होंने मिडल ईस्ट को कवर किया है। ये सब अलग किस्म के पाकिस्तानी जो हैं, पाकिस्तान और पाकिस्तानियत और पाकिस्तानी अमेरिकन होने के नाते मीडिया को कैसे देखते हैं? क्या आपको अपनी कहानी खुद अपनी जुबानी बोलनी चाहिए या और लोगों को कवर करनी चाहिए? पाकिस्तान में तो मीडिया इफेक्टिवली खत्म हो गया है, मगर पाकिस्तानियों में मीडिया खत्म नहीं हुआ। ये हमारी डिबेट थी, मजेदार डिबेट थी, यू मस्ट वॉच इट। और ऐसी डिबेट्स हम इंशाल्लाह और करेंगे। अगर आपके पास आइडियाज हैं, आपके पास स्ट्रेटजीज हैं, आई लव टू हेयर देम। शेयर करें, लाइक करें, सब्सक्राइब करें, कमेंट करें। येल के बाद दीगर और अमेरिकी यूनिवर्सिटीज में हमने ऐसे और दीगर और कॉन्फ्रेंसेस करनी है। अपनी कम्युनिटी जो बच कुछ गई है, अपनी नई जनरेशन, सबको साथ इकट्ठा करना है। दैट्स व्हाट वी आर डूइंग। वी आर ट्राइंग टू फाइंड आवर वॉइसेस बैक थ्रू द क्लैमर ऑफ दीज अमेजिंग पीपल। आगे आने वाले दिनों में मीडिया के अलावा टेक, वेलनेस, लॉ, ह्यूमन राइट्स, दीगर और हमने डिबेट्स की, पैनल्स की, 9 पैनल्स हमारे हुए। ये सब आप देखेंगे। मेरा साथ दें, आजाद मीडिया के साथ दें। अब पिवट करते हैं येल यूनिवर्सिटी की तरफ। लंबा शो है आज का, मगर देखना जरूरी है कभी कभी, क्योंकि वरना अगर रोज का मंजन खाएं तो फिर पेट थोड़ा सा खराब होता है। Enjoy करें. I will talk to you very soon. Pakistan Zindabad.
My story about why I became a journalist is pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. There's sort of two main reasons. First of all, I had sort of the combination of being interested in current affairs and having a love of writing. I was, for a bit of background, I was born in London to Lahori parents, but I grew up mostly in Saudi Arabia. And so when I was 13, 14, the Arab Spring happened. And I feel like at that age, you start to get a consciousness of sort of the world around you. And it has so happened to be that I was at a really monumental sort of place in the world at the time, and when people were interested in learning about the global south, not just as subjects, but as agents and people who have agency. And so that sort of started my interest in journalism and media and current affairs. I think the second honest thing was that until I was like 22, I had a pretty insular life, both in Saudi and Pakistan, at Yale. We were all kind of like, I'd been raised in a number of bubbles. Expat life in Saudi Arabia is already designed to be separated from the population. And the time that I went to Saudi Arabia, which was in 2003 and 2004, was particularly isolated. And so by the time I was 22, when I graduated from Yale, which was also another wonderful experience, but also another wonderful bubble, I had a strong sense that I was like disconnected from the world that I was in. And journalism was a great avenue as a young person to go and experience the world on my own terms like that. The second part of this question is, why do I think you should be a journalist? And in all honesty, I know Wajahat definitely wants me to say that you should be, and I feel like that's the purpose of this, but I don't think I can honestly fully say that. So I'm gonna give a bit of a nuanced answer. I'm gonna say, on the one hand, I think on a good day in journalism, there's no job like it. Like once you experience the opportunity to explore the world and to write about it, and if you can do so while being protected, while being paid, and while working for an organization that aligns with your ethics and your values, that's like the best job in the world. Like you can't go to consulting after doing that. Another thing is that I do fundamentally believe in the power of storytelling. I believe that journalism is an incredibly important avenue that has the ability to expose injustices and to speak truth to power. And that's true, and we can see that from the work of our panelists here. Aisha, so many people have done phenomenal work that has really changed sort of the landscape of foreign reporting. But on the other hand, I am speaking today after a year of a war in Gaza, in Israel, where we saw the coverage of Western newspapers and the way that they treat sort of the global south. I say Western press because even though we're Pakistani journalists, a lot of us are still operating within the Western press media. Unfortunately, our local outlets, our local medias are not viable substitutes at this point on the majority to be able for us to rely solely on them. And so we end up having to write for Western organizations that have their own narrative bents. And the fact of the matter is that Western media has always been an instrument of Western empire. And we saw that in the case of Gaza, we saw that in the case of Afghanistan, we saw that in the case of Iraq, that the press has not just been used to report on the empire, it's been used to create the very logic that it runs by. So it shapes public opinion, it justifies intervention, it creates consent for war. And we saw this in the British Empire in the 19th and 20th century, we saw that in Iraq, Afghanistan, and in Gaza, and I think that this will continue to be so. And for a while, I think when I was younger, I did think, you're confused? Okay, sure. And I did think that for a while that there can be a place for pushing for a seat on the table and having brown people come up in newsrooms and something can change. But I think after the experience of watching Gaza that there is a less likelihood that I think something fundamentally can change, because I believe that American papers will always be reporting on places like Afghanistan and Pakistan, not because they're interested in the stories that we have to say, but because they're informing policy in Washington, D.C. So the fact of the matter is that there's a flaw in the business of news, and I think that that's something that we have to confront. And we have to tell young journalists that there's something that's not working in journalism. Either our local media, local ecosystems need to be built, or we need to fundamentally change something that's about this system. I don't really have the answer, but what I can say is that I think that storytelling remains an essential part of what we need to be doing as young people, and our stories are valuable and important. I think that we need to start shifting or decentering Western narrative and the Western axis that has driven a lot of our work. And you see, when I graduated, I thought this was a theoretical thing. But when I went to the field, when I went to Lebanon, when I went to report in the Middle East, I noticed how exactly places like Washington Post, New York Times were putting their resources in areas that they had political interest. The reason why they had an Afghanistan office for a very long time was because they had American powers in Afghanistan. And as soon as that went out, they closed down the office and they sent it to India. So American media is directly tied to American political interest, and that I strongly believe in that. I think the solution is that we need to start nurturing our own ecosystems, but I also think that we need to start telling stories on our own terms. So for a long time, when I used to pitch stories, I'd be like, how do we explain this to a Western audience? How do we make this palatable? How do we sort of like get them to treat us like human beings or treat us with some dignity? And I think that's kind of a losing game. I think we start letting that go, and I think we start telling stories on our own, in our own agency, in our own ways, thinking about the stories that we want to tell, not because we're asking the West for some dignity and for some consideration. I think, I'm gonna wrap it up. So the thing that I'm gonna do, that I suggest is that, especially at a time like this for young people, I think storytelling can be so important. And there's an opportunity for young journalists to use a bunch of new medias that are coming out, like film, documentary making, podcasts, Substacks, a bunch of things are coming, and this is a great time to do it because actually press has never been weaker. So like written press, the kind of press that I thought I was gonna be doing, which is like being a New York Times reporter or being like a fundamental paper journalist, is actually a very dying breed, and there's an opportunity to create a whole new avenue of journalism, and I think we should support young people doing that. So that's my speech.
Thank you. Good job. Okay, here's the problem. Here's the problem. The problem in this room is a sonic problem. That means that you have to be super quiet for us to be able to talk to you in the back. I know, that's how it was designed. So, do we talk like this? Way better. Is it better? Okay, it's going to create a problem for a video outlet. So, how bad is this and how bad is this? Okay, so how should we proceed? The mic is better. Okay, we're going to stick with the plan. We're going to keep the mic on because it's a split vote. But here's what's going to happen. That will not be allowed. That needs to stop. The dating game in the back has to stop, right? So I need you guys to really, really respect the rules. You've had your lunch. Please, please enjoy the conversation. Thank you. You have to be quiet. Thank you. It's a church at the end of the day. Thank you. Okay. We're all going to try to project as well, all right? Okay, thank you, Meher. Firstly, that was critical. But secondly, from a different perspective, I must ask Wajahat to weigh in. Now, Wajahat, besides being awesome and being a Wajahat, I've always sensed a very different mirror image of myself and you, by the way. You don't cover Pakistan, and yet you do because of what you stand for. The story of Pakistan is not yours to tell. You haven't reported from there. But the identity of Pakistan as a Pakistani American is critical. Really need you to weigh in and tell us more about the minivan you drive in your middle age.
Yes, sir. Okay, can you all hear me? Yes? All right, Assalamu alaikum to the aunties. How is everyone doing? People, I did not come here all the way from Virginia on coach for that pathetic response. I'm not here for any foolishness. When I speak to a bunch of Pakistanis and brown people in a chapel at Yale University, I expect to hear from a living, breathing, chicken tikka eating audience. All right. Thank you very much. First and foremost, let's just take a moment to realize that we're in a chapel. So a bunch of brown people, mostly Muslims, in a chapel. This will either delight people or terrify people. Both, I'm here for it. Secondly, this is the first time in my 44 years on earth I'm sharing a panel with another Wajahat. So thank you, Wajahat. I'm not alone. I feel seen. Third of all, thank you, Wajahat, and the Ivy League. What is it called? Ivy Pakistan Baller, awesome, future overlords of America, Pakistanis, better than us. Mashallah, you're awesome. For hosting this conference, I think it is amazing. We did not have things like this growing up. A round of applause for all the people who put this together. Fourth of all, do not worry, oh, you young people in the back who are trying to swipe right. I was told tonight at the DJ party, Khawali, Chai After Dark, you will be, it's basically Rishta Fest, all right? So anyone who's young and single, raise your hand if you're young and single. Go to, it's okay, it's a safe space. Bichara, that one guy, he's like, me? He's like, it's like that scene in the movie, he raised his hand, he's like, oh crap, nobody else raised their hand. Tonight, you'll get to, have Rishta. And then finally, inshallah. And finally, I want to say this is, it is a pleasure being invited to Yale, the same university that rejected me for undergrad and grad school, has invited me twice to address its students and give them advice, which means, thank you, which means karma is real, karma is brown, and karma is petty as F. Thank you. All right, very quickly, I will say this. He asked a very good question. If you aren't telling your story in America, your story is being told to you by others. And if you aren't writing your story in America, your story will be written for you by others. And in America 2025, as of yesterday, the Naval Academy of America has excised and boycotted a laundry list of books written by people of color. Many Pakistanis, Latinos, Black people, LGBTQ, and Muslims. Maya Angelou is out. Mein Kampf is in. They kept Mein Kampf, not making this up. Okay? And Wajahat knows that Wajahat is not a common name. My parents, to speak about Pakistani identity, you know how some people say you're fresh off the boat, you burned the boat? My parents brought the boat inside the home. My parents gave 0 Fs about assimilation. They named me Wajahat. They didn't teach me English, even though I was born and raised in America. I learned English in ESL, English as a second language, which is now a resource being destroyed because we're against DEI. And I only spoke 3 words of English when I was dropped off at Child's Hideaway Preschool. True story. Shut up, because my mother used to say shut up to me. There are only 2 types of Pakistani immigrant parents, blunt, very blunt. Idiot, because my mother used to say idiot to me after shut up. And if you grew up in the 80s and you're a Buddha like me, you remember the Campbell soup commercial, uh-oh, spaghetti-o? I used to say, uh-oh, pasgerio. Shut up, idiot, uh-oh, pasgerio. Brown skin, only Pakistani, only Muslim. Zindabad, mashallah, yes. And in the 80s, I was also, as the uncles and aunties say, mashallah. I was, bahut khata hai. Big boned. I was fat. And I was fat in the 80s when there was no Dove soap commercials, body positivity, Lizzo. Every day was jihad. Every day was World War III. And when you were growing up in the 80s like me, mashallah, you used to wear husky pants. If you know, you know. Husky pants was, you know, bro. This guy in the second row, there's like an ansu coming from his eye. He goes, the trauma. But the interesting thing was, even though I was super shy, couldn't speak English, the outsider, I felt a pride being the only Pakistani and Muslim. So by default, I was the token. Anyone here being the token? The only Pakistani, the only Muslim. And by virtue of being the only Pakistani and Muslim, I was the conduit, the gateway to all things brown, all things Pakistan, all things Muslim. So I ended up being a storyteller by default. We used to go to Pakistan a lot as a kid. I've gone several times. Pakistan has tried to kill me 3 times, and I have survived. If you see this Harry Potter scar, I used to call it the Klingon scar in the 80s, but for the kids now it's a Harry Potter scar. 4 years old, Karachi, hit and run. Pakistani motorcycle versus Wajahat Ali. Pakistani motorcycle won. Second time, almost died of pneumonia when I was 11. Third time, malaria. Mashallah. All right. But speaking about telling your story, in the back of my head, growing up in the 80s, I always wanted to be a storyteller, but there was no one like us. There was no Wajahat Saeed Khan on YouTube crushing it. There was no Hassan Minhaj. There was no Fareed Zakaria. There was no Mindy Kaling. There was no Miss Marvel. So you used to see white people in brown paint. That's as good as it got. No hijabis on television, okay? So you used to sit there, and our parents' generation, I don't want to, everyone knocks the immigrants, but you have to realize our parents, they came thousands of miles to a new country. My father came in 1966 from Karachi as a teenager, landed in UC Berkeley, saw everyone had hippie hair, ditched his kurta, and I saw a photo of my father from the early 70s. He had hippie hair, and I was like, I'm traumatized. I thought all Pakistani uncles were born bald, but he was actually cool. But you imagine young people came to a country, and my father said at that time, in the early 70s, if you saw a brown person, forget Pakistani, they used to cross the street and exchange phone numbers. Zain uncle, is that true? Zain uncle's from the Bay Area, so anything, he knows me since I was a kid, so am I lying about anything so far? All right, there you go. So that generation, when they say, oh, they're backwards, no. They had to sacrifice a lot. And they came here and said, I have to give paisa back to Pakistan. A lot of these people who are uncles and aunties, you find out later in life, they actually wanted to be writers, architects, journalists. I spoke to a friend of mine, his father. He goes, Beta, you know what I really wanted to be? I'm like, engineer? You were born an engineer? You were like fated to be an engineer? He goes, no, Beta, architect. Lekin, I came here as a young kid, and I said, I have three options. I can go into medicine, and if I'm good at math, I become an engineer. It's a stable job. And I gave paisa back to my ammi and abu. So that generation, when we were growing up, they said, Beta, you want to go into this faltu, fazul, journalism, writing, bakwas? Isme paisa, where is the money? Okay? So you have to understand where they were coming from. And which is why mentorship is huge. When you talk about the Pakistani community supporting journalists and media, they often don't. Because they look at it and say, show me who made it. Okay? Now, you guys are lucky because you have a roster of people who have made it. Right? Novelist, Mohsin Hamid, you have, people who are politicians. We never had that growing up. My parents, and this is where I talk about this crew right here, never underestimate the power of a parent, an uncle, a chachi, a dada, a nani, a friend, who says, hey kid, you got something there. I read a poem. You should pick up the pen and write. My parents did that for me. Very traditional, but very modern. I wrote a story and my father drank chai, read the story and said, Beta, I was 10. You should think about becoming a writer. And my mom runs from the kitchen and says, first become a doctor. It's a true story. Backup ke liye, beta, insurance ke liye. I didn't become a doctor. For if you're in this audience right now, especially Yale kids, and this goes to my other point of the checklist, log kya bolenge? Beta, log kya bolenge? Tum mard ho. Doctor bano, engineer bano. Shadi kaun karega tumhare saath? Faltu, journalist, media. Let's be honest, Vijat. Are you married yet? Say, bichara, see. It's true though. And especially when you go to 8 Ivy League schools, I'm the creme de la creme. Log kya bolenge? What will people say? I have to be perfect. I can't make a mistake. I have to get the best SAT score, best job. And after I go, I can't just work at any law firm, creme de la creme law firm, corporate law firm. And then after the law firm, I make money, and then I have to marry someone who's super hot, 8 to 10 on the hotness scale, wheatish skin tone, from a good family. Even though if she's not good for a good family, but it doesn't matter. We have to perform on Facebook. And then we get married, and then we have 2.3 kids. And those kids have to go to the top school, and they have to have wheatish skin tone and get a 6-figure, 7-figure degree. And then we get older, and then we become religious. Then we go do Hajj. Then we take a selfie. Okay? We have to be perfect because lo kya bolenge. This is the prison that destroys a generation of Pakistanis. I cannot tell you how many mediocre doctors and lawyers that I know
who have achieved the American dream but are spiritually dead inside. Many of my friends. They have the nice house, they have the Honda minivan with the BMW on the side, they married the wrong woman, they have the 2.3 kids. I talk to them on the deal, they're like, I'm dying, bro. I want to die. Outwardly, they're like, hi, assalamu alaikum, kaise hain, assalamu alaikum. They should have been a writer, a journalist, a poet, but log kya bolenge? And I will finish with this. Every generation has a struggle. I was the 9/11 generation. So if you're part of the MSA or PSA, I was a senior when the two towers went down at UC Berkeley. That was the baptism by fire. Game changer. All the privilege that we had went out the window. You all remember this. It didn't matter if we were from the suburbs. You're brown, you're Muslim, you're the enemy. And now tag you're it. No one gives a shit that you went to Yale or UPenn or Brown. To about 35% of this country, you are the enemy. You are the invader. They're getting rid of pro-Palestinian activists from Columbia University. Tufts grad student Rameza Ozturk is detained for co-writing an op-ed. They're going after white conservative men, Miles Taylor and Chris Krebs. You all are brown and Muslim. You think you'll be safe? The privilege won't save you. And a lot of our communities in the last 20 years, if I may say this, went tanda. They went tuss. You guys know tuss? Tuss. A lot of my friends who grew up during 9/11 got the checklist of success, got the suburban jobs and the Teslas, and they forgot. United States of amnesia. We'll be fine if Trump wins. We have the Tesla. We live in the Bay Area. Our son went to Yale. Who cares? It'll be good for my tax cuts. Welcome to the new America. And so I say this to you, and I'll end with this. If you don't tell your story will be told to you by others. We need you to be bold. We need you to be brave. We need to stick your neck out. And when it comes to not journalism and media, I want to stress media. Media is the game changer. TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. You can be a medical journalist. You can be look at all these billionaires and people in finance, right? Look at Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway. Think big. Think about telling your story, especially if you're a professional. Get into media and then run for office, and inshallah, we can take over some more chapels. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Sorry, I spoke too much.
That's awesome. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. It's a lot of apparatus. Well done. Wow. Yeah, that was quite a moment, wasn't it? Let's give Wajahat Ali a hand. Okay, so this is not going to be easy to follow up, but there's only one person who can follow up on where Wajahat left off. He is not Wajahat. He is the one and only Gibran Ilyas. Now, this is a really important moment, okay? Because this guy just doesn't do this. This guy is the secret dark knight of Pakistani social media. People are trying to find him. He has multiple email addresses, multiple Twitter accounts. Millions of people listen to his little cryptic details every day. He effectively does what a lot of you may know, most of you don't know, but I've heard of, the PTI social media machine. Now, the PTI social media machine, I'm going to make him nervous. I'm going to walk in front of him. The PTI social media machine is single-handedly a phenomena across South Asian politics today. It is the only voice, the only free voice of the largest political party and movement of Pakistan, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, whose leader, Imran Khan, God bless him, has been in jail now for almost 650 days. And the only way we hear from or about Imran is through this man and the machine he runs. That's what an important role Gibran Ilyas is playing in Pakistani politics today. Let's give him a hand for that. Let's set that up. This is a difficult role. This is a difficult role. Gibran is a wanted man. I know what that feels like, but he really knows what that feels like. He's a Northwestern professor by day. He's a Google security expert by the afternoon, but he's a PTI social media warrior by night, right? This is the Bruce Willis of Pakistani social media. Bruce Wayne. Acha, sorry. Bald guy complex. Okay, so here's what I'm going to leave it off. Wayne, it's okay. This is where I'm going to leave it off. This is where I'm going to leave it off. Gibran, tell us firstly, two questions, and I'm going to let you take the stage. How do you guys run this crazy machine? Millions of followers, many of them in this room. How do you guys run this crazy machine? And frankly, why do you guys do it? You've got a job. You're sitting here. You're in America. You can't go back. What's your problem, man? Just pay your taxes, go back home to your wife. Why do you get millions of people triggered, informed every day on TikTok, Insta, Twitter, etc.? What's your problem? Tell us your problem. Tell us your story.
Well, first of all, thanks for the very, very kind intro, because before that, people were asking me, why are you on the media panel? You're not a journalist. So my default answer was, well, I'm just here for the biryani. So big biryani enthusiast. But I'll answer Wajahat's second question first. I've been here most of my life, about 25 years in US. Born and raised in Karachi, but been in Chicago about 25 years. So I actually had this passion for cybersecurity. So throughout my schooling, that's what I studied. I was kind of like a hacker by the night, you could call it. So I did that during college, master's as well. And then, there came a point in time when Pakistaniyat kind of came to surface. Because before that, when you live here 25 years, you don't know much about Pakistan. Pakistan for me was literally just going at a cousin's wedding, dancing on the mehndi, eating a lot of street food, ending up in a hospital with getting drips, and by the time the drip was off, guess what? Time to go home, exactly. So that's what Pakistan was for me. And then I realized, as I was growing up, and as I was growing in the field, I had huge passion for solving the biggest data breaches in the world. In 2016, actually, that happened. Do you guys remember the Yahoo data breach? So 2016, I got the biggest case of my life, which was the Yahoo data breach. So I lived in Sunnyvale for 6 months, learned quite a lot on how these data breaches worked with the law enforcement agencies, and it was really interesting to see that despite of me being the lead and doing, basically leading the whole thing, there was a limit. And that limit, fortunately, unfortunately, you can decide later, it was, the identity that I was born with. So that is when I realized that, no matter how good, how amazing my skills are, I'm always going to be a Pakistani. And then there was a time I went to Pakistan, and I picked up a book because, our flights are kind of long, right? You go from Dubai, fly Emirates and come back. So I picked up this book, Imran Khan's book, Pakistan, A Personal History. And what I realized was, all throughout my life, I had actually been in these birthday parties, the shadis, where uncles, my dad included, everybody talked about Pakistan as a skeptic, as a cynic. Everybody thought Pakistan ka kuch nahi hoga, Pakistan, this, that, but they would still talk about Pakistan. So I actually, that is when I realized that, okay, if something needs to be done, you do have to start somewhere. So I got to meet some really, really brilliant Pakistani social media activists who were not just PTI activists. They were Pakistani social media activists. And one thing that I realized is that everybody who came to Pakistan, by the way, in 2013, I went to Pakistan thinking that Naya Pakistan is going to be made, and a bunch of us, from all over the world, we just went and we were like, okay, Naya Pakistan ban raha hai, let's just move. we came back very, very depressed. Because not only that we lost the elections, but all the seats that we had won until the night of the election, those were also reversed. So 60, 70 that we had, I think got reduced to 23. But one thing that we promised one another is that, or actually I did a panel like this to all of the people who had come. And I asked them one question, and that is what Wajahat had asked just now, right? Why do I do this? I've been here, I work at Google, I teach at Northwestern, I don't need to do this. You know, everybody on the panel had one answer. Anybody want to guess what that answer was? What that one word was? Why do we do this? Love Pakistan, but one other thing. It's our dignity. Dignity is what I live with 24/7, right? It is my identity. So if I want a positive outlook of Pakistanis wherever I go, I want my country to have rule of law, to have justice, to have equal human rights, right? So basically the answer to the second question is dignity, and that is why we do this. I forgot your first question, sorry.
Well, I asked you why you do this. You've answered that. What was my first question? Was it about your good looks? Yeah.
Oh, how do we do this? Yeah. Yeah, so
The very fact that you've set up this huge machine, at what cost and how do you do this every day?
yeah.
And first of all, how do you maintain contact with Imran Khan?
That's a great question. Okay, so I'll tell you this. I was on a lot of panel who talked about AI. Do you guys know what AI models are? So think of consuming Imran Khan for 15 years and then having a master journalist like Wajahat interviewing Imran Khan. If you've consumed Imran Khan for 15 years, guess what you have had? You've actually created an AI model with all these large language models, like all of this data feeding into this one engine, which it's kind of like our brain or it's our archives, right? And then based on that, whichever interview Imran Khan had for a number of years, this was our famous game to play in social media. We would basically say, okay, here's the question, this is what the response is gonna be. And you know why? A lot of people might say that, oh, there are a lot of U-turns and whatnot, but his core, has been the same. When he was called Taliban Khan, he had the same stance, right? Peace is the way to go. Now he's nominated for Nobel Peace Prize. Same stance, right? So a lot of the things that he believes in, that they've stayed the same for 15, 20 years. So if somebody has consumed Imran Khan for that many years, guess what? A lot of the articles, a lot of the shorthand that he gives us from jail through the lawyers, we're able to expand on it. So the short answer is, as long as we have some access to Imran Khan, even with like shorthand writings, that works. And did you guys see the Imran Khan AI video? The funny story about that was we had never had a Jalsa or any event without Imran Khan. So as we were planning the virtual Jalsa, the first virtual Jalsa, because we couldn't do a physical Jalsa because of the fascism there, we basically said, hey, we usually end the Jalsa with Imran Khan. So a lot of people gave the idea, okay, you know what, we'll play his old speech and that. So we asked Imran Khan, we're like, hey, can we do your AI speech? And Imran Khan, he's a technologist. I mean, you wouldn't believe it. He was the first one to have a lot of these accounts. So he said, yeah, go for it. And then what we did, so he just wrote some shorthand, right? Like, hey, these are the topics that I want to head on. And then we basically, wrote like more of a longer write-up. And that's what we did even when he was out. Like a lot of the drafts of his tweets, of his write-ups, the social media team or his speechwriters, we would actually partner up on. So that's how that happens, if anybody's wondering. Because basically, if I didn't mention that, then, I think there would be some black Vigos right outside and they would just come grab me. So that's my safety part. But really, I think we get a lot of credit for PTI social media. What I say to that is we have done nothing. It's the people of Pakistan who have smartphones, because with the smartphones, with your social media accounts, you folks are the journalists. If I don't know if you folks know, if you search for like news in your App Store or Google Play Store, X comes up as the #1 app for news. So if you have that account, guess what? You are as good a journalist as could be. And what we've learned over the years, it's not even the people with like the big accounts. It's the idea that goes viral. So if you have an idea, and if you're brave enough to put it, incredible things will happen. You can actually change a lot of things. The agency or the people that we're kind of like up against are very, very powerful people. But the thing is, the truth is not on their side. So one of the first things that they said very arrogantly is that we have a red line on Imran Khan, and guess what? He's never coming back again. And I will say, if I could sum up this movement of last 3 years in a sentence, I would say, nothing can win over truth. And for the last 3 years, they've been trying to crush us one person at a time, but the movement keeps growing. And just yesterday, Dr. Arif Alvi mentioned that according to their own survey, Imran Khan has 90% popularity in Pakistan. So that's the power of truth. Don't ever estimate the power of truth. Don't ever estimate your one account, because your one tweet, your one Instagram message, your one Facebook post can help in changing the world.
Thank you. Amazing.
No, thank you.
There's a... Okay, wow. So just to, can you hear me? Yeah, okay, just to follow up. This is an interesting concept, right? We must follow up on what Gibran said real quickly before I bring in Aisha. So I went to college here, like, I don't know when. I shouldn't even be telling you this. But yeah, I was here in the late 90s, early 2000s. Yes, I'm that old. And a lot of stuff was happening in the late 90s, early 2000s. Pakistan was testing nuclear weapons, getting sanctioned. Pakistan was going to war with India. Pakistan was going through a military coup. You might remember it. Pakistan was becoming a frontline state in the war against terror, paid partially for 9/11. There's a lot going on in Pakistan. And yet, the diaspora wasn't as organized as this. Again, 10 years later, I came back for grad school here. Pakistan had just gone through another moment. Benazir Bhutto had been assassinated. A couple of years after that, Osama bin Laden was killed on holy ground in Pakistan known as the military garrison of Abbottabad. And yet, this moment, again, nothing happened. The diaspora didn't really care. Something has happened in the last 3 years since Imran Khan's incarceration that the diaspora has come together like this and in so many other halls across this country. That is something I need you all to reflect on. And that is what Gibran Ilyas and the rest of us individually are in the center of. Something is going on here, something larger. We've been in this country for 2.5, 3 decades. Some of us were born here, some of us immigrated here. But we are in the midst of something pretty serious. Now, whether it's Imran and his 72-year-old good looks, I'm not sure, possibly. Perhaps it's Gibran and his social media dark magic, possibly. But I think ultimately it's what he said in the end. It's you. You've started standing up for yourselves. You started telling your story, and I think you should stick to it. As Wajahat Ali said, if you don't tell your story, someone else will. Now, last but not least, now I've bumped into her so many times in so many stories. We usually used to meet when we were in Islamabad together. I used to meet her at the most horrific places. A bombing with dead bodies strewn around. A riot, tear gas in our eyes. You know, we became friends on the street, on the dark streets of Pakistan, in those bloody fields in and around Islamabad during the heyday of Pakistani politics in the last decade and the war on terror. She used to be at Voice of America, then on the ground there. She eventually came here. But from Kinnaid College in Lahore, this woman became the top correspondent for Voice of America in Kabul when the Taliban fell 4 years ago. She's got a great story, and I welcome, last but not least, Aisha Tanzim to step up and tell us. You know, I know what I want her to tell us. I haven't seen her in 2-3 years. In fact, 4 years, roughly.
Yeah, exactly.
But here's what I really want to know. This is for me. This is not for you. No, I'm kidding. I want to know what it was like when the Taliban took over Kabul. You were there. I want to know what it's like, especially from the perspective of so many people so many people in this room who are women who want to be a journalist. Usually, war correspondence is like a dude thing, right? I've developed a brand around it, right? Yeah, but I'm trying to roll my eyes with you. You've broken that, and I'm proud of you to have broken that. Tell us more. Tell us more about breaking that mold.
Thank you. So first of all, Wajahat, thank you for putting me after all these brilliant people. So I'm now completely intimidated. And they've already said all the smart things that I thought I would say, so I have nothing. I feel like when, you know, you go to interview, like and this has happened, true story. I was in Kabul, and, Karzai had done something, or Ghani had done something, one of those dudes, they kept doing stuff. I was live on a show, and the anchor, who wanted to appear very smart, had a pre-conversation with me, and she said, hey, so what should we talk about? What has happened? So I described all the situation to her, and I said, this is what you can ask, and this is what I can talk about. And she goes live on air, and then everything I've told her about what I wanted to talk about, she says in her intro. And then she comes to me, Aisha, what do you think? And I'm like, okay. So that's what's just happened. These brilliant people have already said anything that I could have said or would have said. So yes, then on to Kabul stories. Yes, I was there in Kabul, 15th August, Sunday morning, when my colleague whom I had said, I mean, Kabul started, like Afghanistan started falling like a house of cards. We expected it to fall, not just that quickly. So when the city started falling, and interestingly, the Taliban started from the north rather than the south, the Afghan army, which was completely capable of fighting them and could have held them off for months or longer if they wanted, did not fight. The Taliban actually went around and made deals with the local warlords and the local elders, and the enemy, the army would simply leave. And so I asked my colleague the night before, I said, do you and your family have a passport? My Afghan colleague, my producer, we'd been through thick and thin together. I've done a few crazy things before the Taliban thing. I went undercover to ISIS-controlled areas, the first journalist who had done that. He was, with me during that. So we kind of depended, and we'd been stuck in some areas where we thought we were going to die, and like sent those messages. You send messages to your family and say, don't worry, this is just my editors asking me to do the SOPs just to know that they work. But if this happens, then you have to do this, this, and this. And so my family never knew where I was, but I just wanted to make sure that, they had my passwords and my bank account information if I die that night, or things like that. So I asked him, I remember that Saturday afternoon, we were working together, and I said, Saran, do you and your family have passports? Because I would not be able to help you if you don't have a passport. I would still try, but it'd become far more difficult, because I knew that I wasn't going to leave him back there if the Taliban rolled in, and they were going to roll in any time. And he said, I have a passport, But my wife and one child, like he has multiple children, one child doesn't. And I said, Sarwan, forget about work. Tomorrow morning, go to the passport office. Use every contact you have in the Afghan government. Tell me if I need to call someone. Get your passport tomorrow, because I cannot afford for you to not have a passport if the Taliban roll into this town, because I will not, it'll be far more difficult to smuggle you out of this country through various borders. And so Sunday morning, he goes for his passport thing around like 10:30 a.m. I get a call from him. He is out of breath and he's like, Aisha, they're here. I'm like, who? Who's here? He's like, the Taliban. And I'm like, what do you mean? He said, they're shutting down the passport office. Everybody's running. The Taliban are in town. I still remember the moment where I was standing, and it was surreal. And I said to him, Sarwan, go home to your family, lay low, don't worry about me. He was a Pashtun man after all. He felt responsible for me. You know, a guest in his country, Afghanistan by that time had become a second home. I had traveled the length and breadth of the country in a burqa and a beat up old Corolla. Him and I always on the road. He was more worried about me than him, and I said, Sarwan, go home to your family, lay low, don't get out of the house. And then I said from, where I was staying in Kabul, which was like a safe house for media people, not advertised at all, I said, let me go out and check. We had other journalists living there. There was a Vice News journalist there for a documentary. There was an LA Times reporter. The CNN crew was there. And so a couple of us went out and we started watching what was happening, how people were running, the panic that was spreading. All this time I'm tweeting, and by that evening, the entire city, Kabul that I knew, Kabul where on any given day, at least 40, if not 50% of the people walking on street would be women. There were lots of young women, college-going women. By 5 p.m., the city was a ghost town. And by that time, the Taliban, and at night, the Taliban had a curfew. The next morning, I'm like, okay, by this time, we've told all VOA journalists, stay home. All our Afghan colleagues, lay low, stay home. If your home is not safe, go to a relative's home. Just lay low, don't get out, don't do anything, because we have no idea what's going to happen. We have no idea whether there's going to be a civil war on the streets of Kabul, whether Taliban are going to come and start, ethnically cleanse the minorities, whether they're going to go after journalists who wrote stories that, Taliban considered were anti-Taliban at the time. We had journalists who were trolled on social media by the Taliban. Where Taliban told them, we had journalists on our list of high-risk people because Taliban trolls had told them, wait till we get our hands on you. So we had all those people to worry about. And then here I am, my boss is at this point not sleeping, and she's like, Aisha, get out. And I'm like, what? This is the biggest story of the century. You want me to leave? I'm not leaving. I'm very incredibly lucky and proud to have a boss like that who said, are you sure? I'm like, absolutely. Why would I leave? This is why I became a journalist in the first place. So anyway, next morning I go out. You guys, Wajahat has seen it. You guys probably not, because you're way too, it wasn't that long ago. It was 2021. But I go out in that space, there was a Hazara translator. I told him to sit in the car with me just in case I have to talk to someone and he can translate for me, but not to get out of the car because Hazara is a minority and, his life might be in danger. And so we go and start taking a stock of the city, etc. And you know, I'm at that point a little naive, thinking I'm in a burqa. We're in a very local looking car. I'm staying in a guest house that nobody knows about. It's not on Google, it's not on any list, and so I'll quietly go back to this, what looks like an old Afghan house, and yes, the Taliban are here, and you know, we'll cover them for a couple of days from here, and nothing will happen. And so we go around the city, we're reporting, we're outside the airport, we see the mayhem, we saw thousands of people literally, you know, running towards the airport, and the Taliban trying to control the crowd with AK-47s, which is like the best crowd control mechanism in the world. People, and we come back, like, you know, after taking a round of the city a couple of hours later, and our street is full of Taliban. I later found out on my subsequent trips to Kabul, because as you guys can see, I did not die, I was alive, made it out. So my subsequent trips to Kabul, I found out that the Taliban had great intel, and they knew exactly where we were staying, and they had marked everything, where media was staying with the, by this time, so the street is full of Taliban, and it doesn't look like they're going anywhere. So the idea that we'll leave and come back a couple of hours later sounds useless. So I tell my colleague, I'm like, listen, they've blocked the gate. And at this point, I'm still thinking, okay, they don't really know who I am, and they probably will ignore if we look like locals just living on the street. And so I tell him, I'm like, you know what? I, as a woman in a burqa, if I get out of the car, I attract attention. Why don't you go ring the bell? When they open the door, let them know I'm behind you. As soon as they open the door, the car will be there. I'll just walk in 2 seconds. Hopefully nobody will notice. And so, you know, he goes, rings the bell. He goes inside. I walk right behind him. Less than 5 seconds from the car to the gate. I'm inside. I'm like, nothing happened. I go to my room. I put down my thing. I'm about to take my, like, hijab off, you know, because I was out and, like, full abaya and, like, the head thing and the COVID mask and everything. And even as I'm taking that off, the manager of the facility, who was a you know, British guy, comes and knocks on the door, and he's like, Aisha, you have visitors. I'm like, me? Yes. Okay. I tell the Hazara translator, I'm like, you disappear. You're a Hazara. Okay, so wrap up in like a minute. Tell him to disappear. I'm thinking, my Dari is broken, my Pashto's not that good, these guys don't probably speak English, how am I gonna talk to him? But I've been covering this conflict for a while and the region even longer, so I know a little bit about the region and I know who's there. So I wear my abaya again and I go out, the 3 dudes in the Kalashnikovs and the, you know, the skull caps that they wear and all, in shalwar kameez, and I walk out there and I like, hi brothers, which one of you knows Urdu? And all of 3 of them raise their hands. And hence the story starts. And I will leave it at that. Anybody who wants the rest of the story can come to me after.
Excellent. You can't get enough of a storyteller once they get going. So here's the plan. We're going to be around, all of us. I really wanted this to go on and on and on. I haven't seen some of these people in years. I've never met Wajahat, for example, before, even though I've followed his work. These are some fantastic storytellers. And before I let them go, we have to cut it short because there's another event here at 3. I'm going to take a quick second, and this is challenging for us, but storytellers are really good at this. I literally want, from each and every one of you, one after the other, rapid round of something, of story, which you think is either inspiring or just plain goddamn scary recently, which sort of puts in perspective the whole point of being a journalist, being in the media, especially being a Pakistani or a Pakistani American in this game. Who wants to go first? Wajahat, you're rearing at the, let's go, you're rearing at the bit, let's go. Let's wrap it up, let's give him a quick hand and wrap it up, come on.
Last Sunday, Tyson Mall in Virginia, I was driving my Honda Odyssey minivan, returning a big Lego toy with my son, and across the street, I see Stephen Miller of the Trump administration. I didn't see him, but I did not see him, but I sensed him. And then there was, inside my mind, I'm like, should I say something? Should I not say something? Should I say something? Should I not say something? 2 armored vehicles, security, and a driver, which means your taxpayer dollars are paying for his driver and his security. I have to see him as I'm crossing to go into the mall, and something inside me said I have to say something because I thought of the men who are in El Salvador right now, who are in prison. So as I was crossing him, holding a giant Lego bag, brown-skinned Wajahat, and I saw this chutia, Stephen Miller. May Allah forgive me, I said it in a chapel. I had to. I said to him, and I'm not stupid, I didn't yell, I didn't get in his face, I didn't do swear words. I said, Stephen, you're hurting families. You're hurting families. Haramzada heard me, saw me, refused to make eye contact with me. I was on the sidewalk exercising my First Amendment speech. His bodyguard comes and says, sir, you have to keep moving. Technically, I do not. But I looked at him, my son was behind me, I said, yeah, sure. I gave a lingering look, the Pakistan in me came out, and I kept walking. I posted that story. My susral, my father-in-law, mother-in-law, and my parents are like, idiot, pagal, why would you do this? You're a brown-skinned Muslim man, they already hate you. But a part of me said, if I don't speak up and say something in a civil way, then I'm dead, I'm a coward. And it is up to me to say something. No one else said anything to him in Macy's, I said something. And as a result of sharing that simple story, I'm no hero, I'm a middle-aged dad. All these people are like, thank you for saying something to him. And that's what we gotta do.
When I graduated from Yale, I was deciding I wanted to go to Beirut, and so I moved there without really knowing what I was expecting. And I joined this local paper called the Daily Star, which is where sort of train all the sort of young foreign correspondents. And I really genuinely expected to party in Beirut for a year, and that's what I was thinking of going in and doing. And I thought I'd do a little bit of news on the side. But 2 weeks into the job, the October Revolution begins, and my office was in Parliament Square. And I leave my office and I hear gunshots, and like 3 people have died in a WhatsApp tax protest, and they're pretty much a couple of meters ahead of me. And I suddenly realized that I was like completely out of my depth, that Yale had really not prepared me for this, and that I was completely in for a ride that I just did not know I was signing up for. And so the next few weeks, I sort of like got a grip of myself, told myself like, okay, you're here, you have to sort of get it together. I got tear gas like twice in the first month, so like the whole like not being connected to the world, like that problem was solved really quick. And yeah, the next couple of weeks were really intense. There was a lot of like the sensationalism of foreign reporting. I felt it all in the first couple of weeks. But the most memorable thing would probably be that a couple of weeks after, 2 months after, there were still protesters every day on Parliament Square, and I used to spend every single day talking to them. And at one point, I was just talking to like an old shopkeeper, and he was just like, he just kind of burst into tears crying about the situation because of the banking crisis. And I suddenly realized at that point that like, these people are not just like characters in my story of a byline, like these are people whose lives are being affected, and these people have suddenly like lost every saving in their bank account that they had been working for their whole life, their future just been wiped out. And at that moment, it was a really important lesson for me as a young journalist that amidst all the sensationalism of being a foreign reporter, of all like the cool, sexy things that we do, of just like getting tear gassed and whatnot, there's actually a lot of people, like a lot of sort of painful stories that people are honoring us by telling, and we should sort of, be responsible for that. But yeah.
What's up? By the way, getting tear gassed is marginally sexy. Yeah, it's not sexy. Marginally sexy. Subran Ilyas.
All right. So Wajahat has allowed me to talk about 2 things. One, he wanted something about Khan Saab. So, you know how
I want to hear a Khan Saab and Imran Khan story you've never told anyone.
So in his element, Imran Khan, right? So Imran Khan, when he's preparing for speech. He doesn't want to read anything, right? So you've probably seen, people hand him chits, and he doesn't, he puts it aside, even from the most powerful, right? So one day, people are giving him some advice, like some speech notes, comes up, say this, comes up, that. A lot of people who had heard about this criticism on Imran Khan using an OA word for a leader, they were giving him a lot of pain, right? That Khan Sahib, you should use decent language and all that. So Khan Sahib listened to one person, second person, third person. The whole room is saying, yeah.
So what was the word he was using?
He used OA
OA.
for Nawaz Sharif.
Does everybody know what OA is?
Just like, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So Imran Khan, after listening, very patiently to all, somebody asked him, like, okay, Khan Sahib, what are you going to call Asif Zardari now? He's like, well, I can't call him Daku, so I'm going to call him Mr. Daku. Is that respectable enough? He was really upset, but he was trying to calm down. The one thing that I want to say to, the scary stories, because I think what they have is my number tapped. So when I talk to somebody who they've abducted before and had them sign affidavits to not speak about PTI or Imran Khan. So one time I was just talking to somebody and he tells me, hey, Jabran, you know what? My CCTV cameras show like 2 black big cars and I'm about to be taken away. So 10 days later, he comes back and he tells me one of the most interesting lessons that I learned in these 3 years. He said, Jabran, the reason why we're winning is because we're doing it out of love and not hate. The other side, they're trying to crush us because of hate. So we're doing it because we're truthful, and we're doing it because of the love of Pakistan and the love of the leader that we admire. That is what's keeping this whole thing together, because even when we're facing the worst tortures, or when we're about to, when we think we're gonna get beaten up, there's a guy like who's about to hit. He's pretending to hit, not hitting really. So that humanity, the love, all of these things are real. The power of truth is real. The power of you is real. And the power of love over hate is the most real thing. And that's what one thing.
Aisha has the last word. Yeah, Aisha can complete the story. Or Aisha can just make it, Aisha can escalate it to a scary level.
I can complete that story, or I can leave that for later so you can come talk to me about that. Yeah, it's up to you guys. After party. Okay, so I'll tell you another scary story of mine, but this is like more than like bombs flying scary. This is scary for a broadcast journalist. So I was anchoring at that time an English show on international affairs, and Modi's running for Prime Minister of India the first time. He's had the history of Gujarat, etc., etc. So we're doing the show on Indian politics, and I'm fully cognizant of my Pakistani background and how I'll be seen as biased against Modi. So I'm thinking I need to make it very, very balanced. And so I've got a Congress guy, I've got a US think tank guy who's like neutral. And then I try to find the most articulate BJP supporter who can defend Modi so that I don't have to do that, because, and so, but the BJP supporter is from India and he's joining us via Skype, and I talk to him and confirm and reconfirm and then confirm the morning of and then confirm before the show. And then I'm in the studio and I'm live on air, and I confirm that the Skype connection is there and it's secure and everything, and my producer's like, okay, countdown starts, and I start introducing, hello and welcome to Access Point with Aisha Tanzim. And as I'm speaking, my intro, I hear my producer in my earpiece. He's like, where is he going? What's happening? Why is he leaving? Sir, where are you going? And I'm like, oh my God. And she says, Aisha, your guest from India is gone. Your guest from India, the articulate BJP supporter, is gone. And I am stuck to defend Narendra Modi.
Oh, that's tough.
Because I am the host. Yeah.
That was rough. That was rough. That's unenviable. Thank you.
Oh boy.
We're gonna wrap it up, but we're not done yet. I'm going to tell you my little story. And we're going to wrap it up real quick. Now, this is going to be fun. Sit down. This is important. I've never told this story. So I'm going to compete with my gang. Wrap it up, but in a bit. I'll tell you the moment I decided to be a journalist, which is the whole point of having all of you here in this chapel, on this campus, is to, as Wajahat said earlier, is to allow you to tell your own story yourself, otherwise somebody else will say it. That's a very important thing. I think that's the big catchphrase for me tonight. I come from a family of civil servants. My father was a civil servant in the police service. His father was a civil servant in the railway service. His father was a civil servant in the Crown. Okay? So we are servants of society. At least I thought we were. So here I was at a job at Geo News in 2002, 2003. And I thought I'd give journalism a shot, but I really was prepping for the CSS examinations. Now, the Civil Superior Services examinations, are some of the toughest exams on the planet. You don't get to sleep much when you prepare for your CSS. So I turned up one day with puffy red eyes in the elevator at the same time as my boss. I'd be Geo News Strategy Manager in the morning, and in the nights, I would study for becoming a fourth-generation Pakistani civil servant to serve my government and serve my country. My boss was a scary man. He turns up in the lift, and he was one of those guys where if you turned up on the lift with him, well, good luck. So I get in the lift with him, also known as an elevator in this country. I go into the elevator with him. I press the button for the top floor. He had one look at me, and he said, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "Well, sir, I am prepping for the CSS examination." He said, right. We went from the ground floor all the way up to the top of Geo News, which is the 6th floor. And as soon as the door opened, he said, "Hey, stop. Hit the ground button again." I was confused. My boss had given me an order to go back to the ground floor. I hit the ground floor button. I went to the ground floor again. The door opened. As soon as the door opened, he said, "Hit the top floor button again, Wajahat." I hit the top floor button again. I went up again. And my boss effectively said, when the door opened the 3rd time, he stepped out. He said, "Go down, Wajahat, and come back when you don't want to take orders from people, because that's what you're going to be doing when you're going to be a civil servant. Because if you're going to be a journalist, you're supposed to do the opposite of this. You're supposed to ask questions, not take orders. When you decide that you're ready to ask those questions, come back to the office, have a good day." That is journalism. That is what these people do. And that is what we'll be doing for the rest of the day. So I'll see you guys in the humanities HQ in the next hour. Thank you. The show goes on. I'll see you guys in a bit. Thank you again. Give our audiences a hand.